Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Into the Pit. And I have here Mr. Josh Bladzik. He has a very interesting life, and we're going to get to know him and what he does. And just kick it off. Tell us about you.
All right. So I'm Josh, and I was born and raised up in Arizona, a little town of Bisbee, which is kind of cool. It's an old mining town, right
Cool.
next to Tombstone. So I like that. I like that area, and since I was a child, man, I always was, by myself doing things, and just always drawn to the unusual, and at a very young age, I was about 16. I left home and was traveling around with the circus as a juggler and fire eater. So definitely not the most normal upbringing.
Right.
And it's funny, when I first left home, my mom, and dad were talking, and they're like, it's a phase, he'll be home in a month. 15 years later, they were like, well, I guess that's what he does.
Did you have any encounters or anything when you were a kid, whether it be ghosts or UFOs or anything?
Yeah, there was some, I think when I was about 16, there was a real, one that sticks out in my head, was an interesting encounter. So my family decided they were all going to move, and I stayed in the house we were at. Everyone moved out, and I was upstairs. We had a loft, and I was sleeping. And on the other side of the wall, there was like an open kind of like airflow area. The wall wasn't all the way to the ceiling. And I'm in bed, and my TV and everything was on the other side of the wall. And at that time, I guess that's how old I am. There was VHSs, by the TV, and a whole stack of them flew over the wall.
What?
And hit me and scattered all over the house of my room. And I thought, someone was messing with me, but there's no one there. The only other person, I had a roommate who lived downstairs, and I ran down, and I could see into his room and through the stairs, and he's sleeping there on the bed with his dog. No explanation for it.
No.
And at that time, I was never really like, I always believe in spirits, but I was never, really experienced anything. And that grabbed my attention,
Right.
And I started doing research, and they say when there's like a big shift in movement in houses, it can stir stuff up or whatnot. I don't really know what happened. All I know is that house never felt the same after that. It always felt like people were watching you or something,
Right.
I didn't stay there too much longer.
Oh, out of curiosity, I've never asked anyone this, but I've always kind of felt like I've been around paranormal stuff all my life. So whether it be ghosts or what have you, and from time to time, it was like somebody was talking in my ear. Okay, I always just kind of chalked it up. It was something in my mind, never thought of it being abilities or anything. And mind you, I everybody says that everyone has abilities, but I don't pursue it. But every once in a while, I'll get this voice, and it's always different, male or female. Did anything like that happen to you at any point?
I had a situation when I moved to Minnesota from Arizona, and I had a business there in this little town of Fairmont, and it was a interesting building. I never felt any kind of like weirdness there. I had a big basement, and there was a hidden access door that led downtown, because it was right in the little main area, and it led to the Masonic temple down there. And I thought that was interesting. I never thought of it, and a friend of mine was there, and we were doing some work, and all of a sudden something just said, "Get out." And I was like, it was so loud that I just stopped because I thought, am I imagining this?
Mm-hmm.
And I look over at my friend, and she just said, "Okay, we're leaving." And I was like, okay. But it was like one of those things where maybe it was giving me some flags beforehand, and I just never paid attention because I'm scatterbrained and like a squirrel. Everything is, I've got 50 things going on at all times.
Yeah. I know the feeling.
And so sometimes I feel like things are talking to me, but I don't know if it's myself. Am I thinking this? But that was a very, very interesting scenario where I was like, okay, that's not me talking to myself.
Yeah, it's hard to explain. It's just this voice. Nobody else is around, and all of a sudden it's just in your ear.
Just hear it.
I always thought it was just something in my mind, and thought, oh, that's kind of cool. But you hear your name being called, or sometimes you can't understand what it's saying at all.
Right.
But so
Right.
did you have like continuous things happening around you?
It's not like super often,
Mm-hmm.
but it's weird throughout the years. Like there's things that happen that I can't explain, and so it's led me to just want to kind of always search more and try to figure things out.
Right.
Because when you can't explain something, a lot of people just go, well, that I don't know, and that's the end of it. But for me, I'm like, there has to be some sort of reason or
So
something behind it.
now you're an investigator.
Mhm.
Do you have a team?
No, no. A lot of it has been more solo investigations and whatnot. Because in my time with the circus, one of my favorite things to do was to search out locations in new towns I'd go to. Look up haunted areas or UFO sighting areas and whatnot,
Mm.
and just look for anything. See what the different feelings you get in places. And if there's any similarities between areas,
Mm.
which I found interesting because we would travel the country for 11 months out of the year. So it was like different town every week.
Right.
And
Uh,
there's some crazy towns where you feel a lot of energy. And there's other towns you go to, people say, oh, this place is really haunted. And you go there and it's like, well, is it? I don't know.
you want it to happen, but
Right.
most of the time you go in and you investigate, you'll be there for hours and hours and nothing happens at all.
Right.
And then there'll be those you think, ain't nothing going on here, and then all of a sudden a bunch of stuff happens.
Right.
It's weird how that
Right.
goes.
Right.
What's
But it's interesting, like, well, I mean, could it be you're in the right time, right place, and something shows up for you, or and other times it's for other people, other places.
and you often wonder if it's just not attracted to you, like somehow you're a beacon and you're that light in the darkness and they go to.
Right. Right. And it could be, other people, spirits appeal to someone else and not you. I don't know, it's an interesting thing. I mean, because there's no rhyme or reason, I don't think, to it.
It's really not, if you think about it, because sometimes I'll feel like when we go on an investigation and everybody else has experiences and I'll be the only one that doesn't.
Right.
But
Right.
then, like I say, sometimes I hear the voice. They got so bad at one point that I actually checked into a mental hospital because I thought I was going crazy.
Oh man.
That's how bad it got. But those instances, like, why are they attracted to me somehow that way?
Right.
Sometimes things will attach itself to me. I mean, have you ever had anything attached to you?
Not that I can recall, but that's something I have like worried about and wondered,
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been to enough places where people are like, oh, there's bad energy here, spirits, and it's definitely not something I want to pick up.
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
for sure.
And I went I went down to Zach Baggins Museum, and he's got all the haunted stuff and
Oh yeah.
whatnot. And a lot of people are like, oh, I wouldn't go there. And I have to say, throughout the whole place, didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
I just was like, oh, it's all right, it's a normal place. you know, I mean, he collects weird oddities like I do. I just try not to, get ones that are allegedly haunted or possessed.
Right. But still, do you find yourself being that person that when somebody says, "Oh no, you don't want to go there because it's bad," but you're just like, "Oh no, I'm going."
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, it's you want to check it out for yourself and
Of
see if it
course.
really is. You know?
Yeah, I got my wife really pissed at me one time. We were in
Mhm.
Mineral Wells, Texas, and they have the Nazareth Hospital there. And one floor, it seems like there's something really, really evil.
Mhm.
And her and her friend, who's a psychic, they're both saying, "Do not go in there." And of course, I'm like, "Oh, well, you tell me not to. I'm definitely going in there."
Right. Right.
You ever use psychics?
I haven't. I used to do some kind of like investigations up in Minnesota with a couple of people, and one of the ladies, she was real psychic, and it was interesting the places we'd go. She would say stuff, and later on down the road we'd find history to back it up, and it was a little eerie. I'm like, man,
It's
I don't,
crazy, isn't it?
yeah, I don't know if I want to know that much. Sometimes I'm
Now,
like,
you're more into all aspects of paranormal. I'm more focused on the ghosts, but I really want to get into the UFO part of it. And you actually go investigate for UFOs, right?
yeah, yeah, and a friend of mine down in Las Vegas, he does a lot of UFO hunts and whatnot, and he does a lot of cool stuff with that. I just UFOs to me just fascinate me because I kind of wonder. It's something I've been thinking about for a while.
Mm-hmm.
If what we think are ghosts and spirits are actual extraterrestrials,
I wonder that too.
and that's why sometimes, like, when people get real into like, this spirit says it's from this time or this time, I go like, well, I mean, it could, you know but to me, I also think like, well, what if it's just extraterrestrial, being that we don't see? They're in an energy form, and I mean, it would
They
kind
could
of
be that
change the whole
advanced.
ball game. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Or other dimensional.
right,
See,
right,
I ponder those things all the time, and I'm like, because you hear of like cryptids, like Bigfoot,
right,
in that same area, there'll be UFOs and other paranormal activity. So is it all this like the same thing? They're all
right,
connected somehow?
right. And they could be, it's, who are we to say they're not? you know
I mean,
is it
some things we're just maybe not meant to know.
right? I
That
mean, we
doesn't.
only use so much of our brain,
Right, right.
and what we're actually seeing, we're only retaining, such a small amount of what's really going on.
Mhm.
And because it is interesting how two people, are at the same event, but they see totally different things and remember it completely different.
Mm,
And
exactly.
yeah, so I mean, it's like, when you're in places that are supposed to be paranormal hotspots, have like vortexes under them and whatnot. I mean, we were up at this hotel in Canada, up in I believe it's in is it in Creston, somewhere up in Canada, that was like a haunted hotel. And I've seen a lot of programs on it, people investigating there. We went up there. I didn't feel anything, didn't see anything, and I was a little sad about that. But then at the same time, it's like, oh, what am I going to do if I do see something?
Mhm.
No.
Well, when you go on an investigation and you do see something, and how many people that may be with you that say they see the same thing, but they really don't. They
Right.
want to so bad. I'll admit sometimes I say I see something when there's really nothing there, just to see if somebody else will say, "Oh yeah, I seen it too."
Right. 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 And I guess that might be why I like the more the UFO part, because if I see something paranormal, it's UFO, like, something in the sky, well, it's not right in front of me. you
Mm-hmm.
know so I don't feel like there's as much danger, if I'm seeing a spaceship.
Right.
It's more like, oh, whoa, this is crazy, but it's not like I'm in immediate danger and need to leave.
It, if you notice that the talk of UFOs seems kind of picked up a little bit lately,
Yes, yes.
do you wonder if we're not being prepared for an actual encounter?
I feel like it is, because I mean, it's weird how the government releases all these documents saying, oh yeah, UFOs are real, after they call people crazy for so many years for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden now they're the authority on it. And that to me kind of is a little kick in the pants for people who have believed and been doing research for years. I mean, but it would make sense if everything is leading up to, pretty soon there's going to be, extraterrestrial life form has been on Earth and we've known it.
I'm
you know
sure they're here. I'm sure
yeah.
they are. Well, Mark Zuckerberg is an alien, so. You seen that video where he keeps saying "Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce"? Sweet
Right.
Baby Ray, Sweet Baby Ray. They joke about these things, but is it really, maybe they're preparing us for what's really there?
Right.
Can't help but wonder.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and I mean the way they kind of, it's weird, like they start pumping out a bunch of movies that
Mm-hmm.
are all about aliens and coexisting with them, and it seems like they always do that, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh well, here's some aliens, or natural disasters, and it's like they prepare you,
Mm-hmm.
and then reality sets in.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I've thought of this before, how these movies will come out, and then all of a sudden you're seeing or hearing about whatever that subject is. Okay, take for example, and okay, for the YouTube overlords out there, this is just an opinion, but
Right.
there was movies coming out about pandemics and stuff like that for several years,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden, boom, we're living in one. And
Yeah.
you watch those movies back then, you're thinking, oh man, that'll never happen, then boom, here it is. Or there was like this string of UFO type movies, the 50s. I think
Right.
that's when it all started, and that was right after Roswell and all that. But then it kind of quieted down for a little bit, and it picks back up. I think it was in the 70s it picked up again. And you remember that show? Oh my gosh, there was Leonard Nimoy was the guy that was narrating it.
Ooh.
Um, it was like an unexplained. It's one of those things I know like the back of my hand and can't think of it now. But
Right.
In Search of, that's what it was called. In Search
Oh,
of.
okay. Yeah.
Shows like that would pop up, and then all of a sudden people would start. I mean, you were hearing more and more about all these sightings, and
Right.
it'll quiet down for a little bit. Now it's picking up again.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I met this guy. We were living in Vegas a couple of years ago,
Mm,
and I met this guy there who worked with a lot of like, movie stars and, stuff like that. And he was telling me some of the directors, because he's like, why do they keep making remakes anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like every movie that comes out is a remake. And he said he had, a pretty big name director he was talking to tell him that they can't release new ideas. And because the he as he put it, the government tells them what they can make movies on and
I
how they're
believe
going to
it.
introduce stuff to people. And at the time, at first, I was like, I don't know about that. But then I started thinking about how they do that. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, here's Armageddon and here's all these, X-Files shows. And it's like,
Yep.
oh, okay. Starts making a little more sense. You
Yes,
know?
I get so sick of seeing the same freaking movie made over and over and over again. They're
Right.
talking about taking some of the classics we grew up with and redoing them. There was talk of them redoing Back to the Future. That's just one of those movies you cannot remake.
Right. Right.
You can't redo Gone with the Wind or Casablanca or something like that. You just can't.
Right.
So don't try.
Right. Right. But it's going to eventually happen, and it's going to be terrible. You know.
It's very seldom you get a remake that's really good.
Right.
Not that it doesn't happen, but very, very rare. But come up with something new. Geez. So,
Right.
um, I'm assuming that you have tried to hunt down cryptids.
Done a bit of that too. Absolutely. Because it's all interesting to me. So
Right.
it's I got some friends up north in Idaho that are really into hunting for Bigfoot, and they have big conventions up there and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so it is interesting, and learning kind of the stuff that they look for and what when they go out in the woods. It's not stuff like at first I would ever think about, because I like, I grew up out playing outside. So you build forts and, so going out there and I see a random fort built out in the woods, my first thought is not, Sasquatch. You know,
Right.
I think there's some kids out here, they're building forts.
Now, what's some of your best evidence, like of any of the categories?
I mean, unfortunately, I think a lot of it's just like, situations you live through.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as physical proof, that's the hardest thing to actually have in this
Yeah.
line. I had a situation years ago when I was trying to go to Roswell, New Mexico, because it's one of those places I was like, I've never been here, the history, I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was about 60 miles out from it, stopped, fill up my gas tank, and I'm heading there excited. Next thing I know, it's nighttime and I'm 300 miles past Roswell and have
What?
no idea what happened.
That's nuts.
And it's to this day, I've still never been to Roswell. It's like every time I've tried, something happens to where I'm not going there.
They're keeping you away on purpose.
Right. I just want to know what happened, like how did I get so far away, and I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, I've heard of that kind of stuff. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling, not knowing. I mean, do I think I was abducted? No, I don't think anything like that. But it's just, who knows?
You know, it's weird is here lately. I've been getting a lot of stuff about UFOs, whether it be guests coming on my show. I had someone from MUFON reach out to me, and they I guess have abilities, psychic abilities, and they were trying to tell me that I have actually had encounters with aliens, but my mind apparently has been wiped of the situation. Now,
Ugh,
to me, it just sounds like a bunch of hooey, it's
right,
too far fetched. But then
right,
part of me is like, I've had some weird things happen. I wonder if it's not true.
right. right. And that's the scary thing with especially with extraterrestrials. I mean, they would be so more advanced than we are
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, it wouldn't be far-fetched to say they could, blank your mind of the encounter in general, you know.
Well,
I
like
don't
we were
know.
talking about earlier, how some of this stuff is possibly real,
Hmm.
and has this happened? I don't know. I had these out of body experiences that I took as just dreams,
Right.
but did it happen?
Right.
I want to believe, and it's like with the UFOs, called you crazy for all these years, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, they're really out there.
Yeah. Right.
Like, you never know what to believe anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. It's just and how, like, even through media they can manipulate your thought process on everything to,
Mm-hmm.
like, accept it. Like, I feel like, when they released all the information about UFOs, why weren't people like a little more like, oh my God, UFOs are real?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then they just brush past it, and everyone's like, oh, what's the latest, trend with, some TV star? Like, aliens are no big deal now.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
How much of it is real and how much of it is actually made up by the government in Hollywood?
right, right,
It's meant to keep you confused, I believe.
and
Keep
it does
asking
a
that
good job.
question. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, when it comes to evidence, if you're like me, even when I have other people go, wow, you see that, I'm still really skeptical about what I capture. And so
Right.
you'll very rarely see me post anything on social media. When I do, it's mostly, hey, check it out. You tell me what you think. If you think it's something different, please let me know. That way
Right.
I won't think, any more than what it is next time. And it makes, when I do get criticism, I love it because it makes me work that much harder. I mean, is that your approach?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like you have to question everything, because if you think something you see is real, you got to question it. Is it?
Mm-hmm.
What else could be going on, Because I know I've been in on some investigations where you think you see some orbs or some weird lights in somewhere, and then all of a sudden you're walking around and you see, there's a moonlight coming in, hitting an old bottle, which is, ricocheting off something, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not what I thought it was, but,
Well,
I
we
mean,
were we were at this hospital in Yorktown, and I mean, if you've watched Ghost Adventures, you've seen they've been there. In fact, I got
mhm.
a picture of where they autographed the wall. But we all the guys stood out in front of it and took a picture.
Mhm.
And there's one picture where it looks like something is reaching up and grabbing part of my stomach.
Oh,
Okay. Now, when you kind of zoom out, you'll see that we had a bunch of trees surrounding where we're at, and so you had some light coming through the trees. And personally, I think that's what it is.
right,
But I mean, this was a brand new shirt, so it's not a stain or anything like that. I think it was light coming from the trees.
right.
I've had mediums tell me, no, that's you. There, that is a spirit. Okay, we can debate that. I can. I feel like I've disproved it, but you say that's what it is. Here's what I can't explain: is right after that, I had this pain in my stomach that was excruciating, and all the
Oh,
doctors would do is give me pain pills to deal with it. And I went to 3 different doctors, went through all these tests, could not figure out what it was. I mean, the colonoscopy, the whole 9 yards, mind you. And one of the mediums told me, okay, go to our friend who he apparently has this ability. He can kind of dispel things. She
hmm.
says, go talk to him and it will go away. And so I did. I mean, immediately after we started talking about it, the pain went away and didn't come back. Now, is this psychosomatic? Did it really happen? It's just weird that she said that it would stop as
Right.
soon as I talked to him, and it did. It's
Right.
weird that here's this picture. It looks like something's touching me, and I got that pain. And she told me that there was since the hospital had a bunch of children, there was apparently this kid who had been in a wheelchair while he was there, saw me as a father figure and attached to me. Mind you, I
Oh,
mean, I have kids, I have grandkids, and I'm Pawpaw.
right.
So, I mean, have you ever experienced that yourself, or know of anybody that's experienced that, or have
I
any
mean,
explanation?
yeah, no, I mean that's pretty interesting and crazy. I mean, yeah, I've never experienced anything like that
Mm-hmm.
personally. You know, I've had some friends when, we went out to there's a place called Loon Lake Cemetery
Mm-hmm.
up in Jackson, Minnesota, and it's supposedly, immensely haunted and whatnot. It's like a witches cemetery.
Yeah, we
And
have one close here.
yeah, it's an interesting place because when I first went down there, it's, kind of like middle of nowhere. You get into this town, you drive out a little bit, and you take this muddy path out to the cemetery. And well, it was muddy when we went, anyways. And as soon as we're walking out there, it's muddy. No one else has been out there, and then I started seeing little shoe prints, like little boots, like from a child, and I'm like, okay, there's no other, imprints out here at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were about halfway out to the cemetery, led all the way into the cemetery, and everything out there is covered in poison ivy except for 4 tombstones, which had flowers on them. And those were allegedly the ones that were, these 4 women who were hung for witchcraft.
Mm.
I mean, and I had people who I've been with out there, they felt like, hands grabbing them and whatnot, and some of them had like prints that they couldn't, explain on their arm afterwards. A lot of poison ivy. You go out
Yeah.
there, it's kind of you usually get it when you're out there. So, but yeah, nothing is as extreme as that. That's wild. I mean,
Yeah. So nothing physical has happened to you, just mainly you've experienced it or you've seen it.
yeah, nothing physical to me, thankfully. I mean,
Yeah, fingers crossed, knock on wood, the whole nine
right,
yards.
right.
Hey, do you ever have anyone just kind of dismiss you, like maybe they feel like you're continuing putting on a show or something like that? Because I know I get those people that think that I'm just full of it.
Right, right. Yeah, I've got a few people I know like that are just, they're like, it's impossible for there to be spirits. There's impossible for this and that. And to me, I'm like, that's fine to feel that way, but that doesn't change the stuff I've went through, you
Mm-hmm.
know, what I've experienced personally. If I could explain it, then I would be right there with you. But since there's no way I can, I'm stuck in that, like, no, it's supernatural, it's, paranormal, it's,
Yeah. You ever invite them to go along with you?
I haven't yet, but I've thought about it with a buddy of mine here, because he's one of those, you know none of it's possible type people. He's like, he always jokes about it because he's like, he watched some of the ghost shows and stuff, and he's like, I don't get why all the ghosts are from the 1800s or 1700s. He's like, what about 1990? Where are the disco ghosts? And it kind of posed a good question, because I'm like, well, you got a point. I've never heard anyone go, oh yeah.
It would be ironic if a ghost came out singing "Staying Alive."
Right, right. That, but maybe that would change people, like his mind on it. They'd be, you'd be like, oh, I guess there is, goes from the 80s and 70s or whatnot. And,
I'm sure we've probably encountered them, but
yeah.
because you don't get total communication with us. Oh yeah, I'm from the 1800s or whatever.
Right.
They could have passed away a week ago.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it is funny though when you invite these folks to go along. There's always some kind of excuse. It's like, maybe you do believe and you're just scared.
Right. Right. I could see that, and especially when it's time to go to investigate some abandoned place, they're like, no, I got something came up. I got something else to do.
So what's your future plans, like as far as investigating goes?
Um, you know, I haven't really been thinking too much, like, because I've actually been in the process of working on a book about the Loon Lake Cemetery,
Mhm.
and the ghosts and all that there. So I've been doing a lot of research in that in Minnesota and Jackson and whatnot, in the history. Um, but any chance I get, anytime I hear about stuff going on, I look into it.
Right.
I don't know where it'll lead in the future, whatnot, if anywhere. Um, it's just something I really, enjoy doing.
Yeah. So it's kind of your goal is to document these stories and get them out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I think people hear stories, and if they might have felt, like alone, like a situation happened to them, and they're afraid to say it or whatnot. If they hear someone else talk about that story, a similar situation they had, they might, it might help them go like, okay, I'm not crazy. This happens to people.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you'll get a story in an area and the same story is told about some other place. Because like where I grew up, there was this one road we called it Blood Road or Goat Man's Trail, and
Hmm.
the story of the Goat Man. But yet, just about I think every state has a story of the Goat Man.
Right, right,
It's like
right.
where did this originate? Which one's really the where it started? You know what I mean?
Right. Right. And it could be, different areas have the same name, but it's, something similar living there, and it's kind of like the whole, Yetis and Sasquatches and whatnot. And,
Yep.
there's different names, but they're very similar. And you know, what's the reality of it? I don't know.
Well, okay. When you go out to Blood Road, what's
Mhm.
crazy is if you drive one way down the road, and you have to do it in the dark just to really see it. But if you drive one way, you don't see anything. But if you drive the other direction, there's a red streak all the way down the road. Now,
Whoa.
personally, I think what it is that a chemical truck probably drove down that way and had a small leak or something, and that's what you're seeing. But of course, it's a lot more fun to believe that this guy
Right.
drug a severed head down the road or
Right.
something.
Right. It makes for a better story for sure.
Mm. Well, you never know what you're going to run across. You get across the United States and document some of these. I think it's important to document all these old stories,
Yeah.
whether it be about the paranormal or what have you. My grandfather was in World War II, and I kept saying I was going to document all his stories, and then he ended up with dementia before he passed away, and then you didn't. That's all
Right.
lost.
Right. Right. And you can't get that back.
No.
And that's, yeah, I agree 100%. Documenting it's important, even if other people don't think it is. The simplest little story could be significant.
Mhm.
And I think people really should look into that more, and start kind of documenting what they go through. you know
Yeah. Well, everybody has a story to tell.
yep.
They're just looking for someone to sit down and hear Just
Right.
listen. You know what I mean? And I think you should document. I mean, your whole going through the circus and all that. I think it would make a good story. I think it might make a good show.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Over the years, I've written a couple books that were, like of short stories from the road, but they're more not really paranormal, but more funny stories of, situations. I mean, a lot of funny stuff happens over the years.
For sure, for sure. Well, man, I've really enjoyed having you on the show. This has
Oh,
been great. I've enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to whatever you have going on in the future. And when your book comes out, if you'll let me know, I would love to promote it, get it out on
absolutely.
social media. I mean, come back on and we'll talk about the book.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's
And
fun, and I like having these conversations with other people that are like-minded.
yeah.
Because I mean, it's not very often you get to have them.
It's nice to know that there's more crazy people out there besides me, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Now, do you have a website or is there social media people can go to and follow you?
I'm on Facebook, under my regular name and whatnot, but I have a business because like in the Strange and Unusual, I have a business called Strange Remains Curio Shop.
Mm-hmm.
And we post articles about strange things there, and also items we make. We do taxidermy and all kinds of weird stuff. So yeah, Strange Remains Curio Shop on Facebook is probably the best way to check out our stuff. So
Okay, so they can get on there and look at what you have and purchase it from Facebook.
yep, 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 absolutely.
Okay, well, I'm going to put those links up in the description so folks can go to it. And
Awesome.
but anyway, once again, thank you for coming on, and the invite is open anytime you want to come back.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a good time.
Anyway, all of you out there, if you're new to the channel, thank you for stopping by, and I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button. And to my regulars, thank you, because without you, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing now. And the subscribers are going up and going up, and the views are going up, and it's exciting, and it makes me look forward to the future. Let's put it that way. And then that's all because of y'all. And until the next one, please take care, be kind to one another. God bless, and peace.
Po boy.